Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Maryland Bluebird Society's Bluebirds Forever Virtual Festival. Thanks for joining us today. Today, Bonnie Bell will be presenting Homeland Security, Bluebird style. We do ask you to keep your videos off, keep yourself muted. And if you have any questions along the way, just type them into the chat box and Bonnie will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. And afterwards, we'll spin the wheel and pick a winner for today's raffle prizes. Bonnie has been interested in the natural world from childhood. One of her earliest memories is of her mother lifting her up to see the birds at the feeder outside the kitchen window. From there, an education in animal science and veterinary medicine was almost inevitable. She has been monitoring her own and county park boxes for over 20 years. After resisting joining the board of the Maryland Bluebird Society for several years, she served as secretary and now as treasurer of the society. And we're so grateful for that, by the way. She's also a volunteer ranger at Seneca Creek State Park, where her greatest joy is showing visitors, both children and grown-ups, something new in the natural world. So thanks again for joining us. And I'm going to hand this off to Bonnie.
Hi, thank you everyone for coming. Today we're going to be talking about keeping your bluebirds safe, because it's very tempting to just put up a box and see what's happening, but they really need our help. Human activities are one of the main reasons that bluebirds were in steep decline during the late 20th century. So those of us who put up boxes, which are absolutely essential for them, it's incumbent upon us to do the best we can to keep them. So most of you people have been here before. So just a brief thing about the Maryland Bluebird Society. Our goal is to help birds and all native cavity nesters in Maryland, and we welcome people to join. It's inexpensive, and we do a lot to help the birds in Maryland. So Homeland Security, Bluebird style. You put up a box, you are the landlord. Those are your birds. You'll be amazed if you've never put one up at how possessive you feel about those birds. They're your birds. The babies are yours. And even though the bird parents are the ones doing everything, all the work of feeding and taking care of those babies, you really will feel like, oh, these are my babies and I have everything to do with them. And actually you do. So you need to mount your box with Bluebird security in mind. We've talked about this in other presentations. You need to check that box regularly during the season. You need to clean it and restore it if necessary after each brood. So brood is, they build a nest, they lay eggs, they raise the young. Those young leave the nest box. So that's one completed brood. And then you need to clean out the nest. Take out that nest. It could have parasites. It's just dirty. Clean it out, and then you may get a second nesting, sometimes a third nesting in that box during the summer season. Could be the same pair coming back, could be another pair. Sometimes you'll start with bluebirds, then you'll get a tree swallow, and then you get bluebirds back. And then at the end of the season, you want to clean it out again, make sure that it's in good shape. Bluebirds will actually use their boxes during the winter when the temperature gets very low. They normally aren't in the boxes over the winter, but when we get like polar vortex weather, really cold temperatures, bluebirds will actually congregate in large numbers in the box. So it's good to have a nice clean box that they can go in during the winter time. So, and I seem to have, there we go. So what are the threats from the ground? Invaders and predators. Black rat snake. This is a common snake. They can be over 4 or 5 feet long, and they like nothing better than to slither into that box and have a nice, tasty breakfast of eggs, or maybe a brunch of some baby bluebirds. And when you've had a snake get into your box, what will happen is you're checking them, let's say once a week. So last week you had eggs or you had babies in the box. You get back the next week, you open the box and everything looks fine. The nest looks fine. There are no disturbances, but there are no babies or no eggs left. Absolutely nothing. No sign of anything. They're just gone. That's generally a snake that has gotten in there. I have had an unfortunate experience of, I had a box that was protected normally, but a tree limb had fallen, and the tree limb pushed some multi-floor rows up against the box. So when I came to check the box the next time, I opened it up, and lo and behold, instead of birds, there was a black rat snake curled up, sleeping in there. And I immediately closed the box and went along my way. I went and got my camera and came back and got some pictures. And that snake stayed in that box for several days and probably was just busy digesting and maybe couldn't get back out the entrance hole until it digested what it had eaten. And then it came out, and because it came out and went through that multi-floor rows, in fact, it shed its skin on its way out. And I was able to carefully clip that skin out, and I had an over 4 foot long black rat snake get in their box. So this is something you can prevent with a good predator guard. Raccoons are strong, extremely intelligent. They can climb, they can jump, they will do anything to get in that box. And when your box has been raided by raccoons, what will happen is you'll come, and you can usually see from a distance as you're approaching, you're looking at that box, and there are nesting materials just hanging out the entrance hole. The raccoons come in, they reach into the box through the hole, and they pull everything out, pieces of nest, and they eat whatever they can find in there. So raccoons can be a challenge to deter. Again, properly maintained predator guards will keep raccoons away for the most part. Squirrels like to get in there. Again, they'll do it. And squirrels like to do one other thing is if they can get to your box, they would like to nest in that box themselves, and they will chew the entrance hole to make it big enough for themselves to get in. So there are ways to prevent that. We'll look at that. So those are the predators that come up. You can get ants and other things in your box that will be climbing up the pole to get in there. And a big ant infestation can actually be a problem. Some of them will bite the young. They'll kind of set up a nest right in the nesting material. So you don't want to have that happening either. So it's very convenient. This is what everybody wants to do. They want to get a nest box. This looks like a proper nest box for bluebirds. It's got ventilation right under the roof. It's got the right size hole. It's a nice size. Putting this on a tree like this is just inviting animals to come in. Squirrels can reach in there. Raccoons can get up there. Feral cats will get up there. This is just not an adequate way to mount a box. And putting holes in your tree is a good way to have insects and diseases get into your tree. So this is just not recommended. Here is the stovepipe baffle, the box on the metal pole. This is the most effective defense against all of these things that will come up there. Mice, rats, mice will actually get in there and set up a nest too. So you really need to make sure that you've got some kind of baffle. This is called a Kingston baffle, designed by Ron Kingston. I noticed a Ron Kingston amongst our audience. So if that's you, kudos for this. This is one of the best baffles. 8-inch diameter is best. You can buy that baffle you can buy the stovepipe at Home Depot or Lowe's. You can get hardware cloth there, mounting hardware, and put this on your box. You need to put it on before you put the box on the pole, or you need to dismount the box and put that on. These are very effective. We have had examples of some really, really big black rat snakes that somehow managed to get over these. Not sure how that happens, but generally this is very effective, and they're really great to prevent things. Oh, and we'll send you some links later on. There are plans for how to make these available online. They're very effective things. Another thing, this conical Zeleny baffle, you can buy large pieces of aluminum sheeting, again at home supply stores. You'd have to cut it out yourself, and you need to fix this to a pole. This is something that works pretty well if you've got if for some reason your box is mounted on a wooden pole, because you can just nail this to the pole itself. Be really careful. You need tin snips, and you need to cut this, and you need some kind of way to put holes in it and screw it or rivet it together, the edges are very, very sharp. So even after it's installed, it's very, very sharp. And so that can be a problem. They work pretty effectively. Again, now and then you'll have a raccoon that seems to manage to get around these. I don't know if they pull down one edge and climb, or they can be cooperative too. If you get a family where they're climbing over each other and they might get in, but that's another option for putting up a baffle. This, I mentioned the squirrels will chew bigger holes in the box. Theoretically, you shouldn't be able to, the squirrel should not be able to get onto your box. But if that does happen, sometimes woodpeckers will chew that hole bigger. And if you, and you know what, personally, I would not be too upset to have hosting some woodpeckers. But if you want to prevent that, you can get these little metal guards that will keep them from pecking that hole bigger. And some of them, you can make them that hole a little bit smaller. Bluebirds can't get in, but you might get some small birds, chickadees, titmice, nuthatches can use that box. So that's another option, is the metal hole guard. For ants and things that climb the pole, you can grease the pole. However, you only want to grease the pole underneath a baffle. The grease is pretty effective at keeping the ants from climbing the pole. But if it's not underneath the pole, it's going to get very dirty. It's going to attract it's going to trap other insects that might be beneficial, some of our pollinators and things. And as it gets really dirty, then it's not effective anymore, because the ants will end up crawling over the dirt and be able to still get up. So you would put some grease, and it could be just Vaseline, whatever you've got, some kind of thick grease on the pole under the baffle. If for some reason you don't have that type of baffle, you can make a upside down plastic bottle around the pole and put it under that bottle, because you don't want the bird's wings or the birds to get into that grease. If they get grease on their wings or their feathers, it's very difficult for them to clean that off. Their feathers are not going to be functional well, either for flying or for insulation. So if you have to do this, you want to just make sure that it's not something that the birds are likely to get on their feathers, because they're very, very vulnerable after that. And that may stay on there until those feathers molt. So it could be a long-term problem for the birds. So another threat from the air are either competitors for the nest box or invaders coming in. They're all competitors and invaders. So these are competitors, but everyone on this slide are actually native birds. Upper left is a white-breasted nuthatch, and that's not a common bird in a box, but I have actually had one use one of my boxes. And when I opened the box, I had a big surprise, because they use pieces of bark to make their nest. And the pieces of bark in my nest box were actually cut so that they were rectangular and stacked. And when I opened the box, it looked like a brick wall just made out of bark. It was the most incredible thing. And I had them use the same nest box for a couple of years in a row. And that was kind of fun. Upper right, I believe that's a phoebe, another cavity nesting bird that's local. I've seen them in natural cavities. I've never had them one of those in a nest box. I'd be interested in the chat for you guys to let us know what you've had in your nest box. Below that is a tufted titmouse. I've had those. Down at the bottom is a Carolina chickadee. I've had those. The nests of the titmice and the Carolina chickadee are made of green moss, and they're beautiful because they're that bright green. They collect it. Once it's dried out, it turns kind of funny, but those are really nice looking nests. Lower left is a tree swallow. I get lots of tree swallows, particularly for some reason, if your boxes are anywhere near water, you'll find a lot of tree swallows. So they're a common nester in these boxes. They're a little more aggressive. And when you are monitoring your box and there are tree swallows in the area, you may be dive bombed by those tree swallows. They will not make physical contact, but I've had them get close enough that I could feel the breeze from their wings as they flew by my face. I'm wearing a hat, so I could feel that below the brim of my hat. And they click their beaks as they're coming by to really, it feels like being strafed by this daredevil bird. But they will not make contact. You just know that they are defending their territory. I think they think of me as enemy number one, although they do get used to it. And once a week, I just get strafed and they come right back in the box afterwards. In the center, there is a house wren. House wrens are a native bird that bluebird lovers are not too happy to have in their boxes because they will do things like pierce holes in bluebird eggs and kill them. They'll build nests on top of other birds. And they will also, if they've got a nest in the area, they will fill every available cavity nearby with sticks to keep competition away. They do like to be closer to a wooded area. So if you're placing your box, you want to keep it not really close. You want to put it on the edge of your property at a tree line. But if that's a deep wood, you might want to try and move your box more towards the center of your property that doesn't have as many trees, because they don't like that as well. All of these are native birds. They are protected by the Migratory Bird Act. When you've got house wrens, you can remove any dummy nests. So any box that's totally just filled with sticks, but doesn't have an egg cup, is not a completely completed nest, you can take that out. If you see one you get there and you're seeing sticks in the bottom of the box, so or you maybe see the birds, you think, uh-oh, I don't want them. One thing you can do is to plug up the nest hole for a week or two, so that they will just find a nest somewhere else, and then you can unplug it, and your other birds will come back in to use it. So that's something that you can do if you're having a problem with them. But really, moving the box might be the best thing to do in that case if you're getting a lot of house wrens. Paper wasps. Most people have seen these if they've been checking nests. This one looks like it's the side. This picture is probably sideways because they typically would be on the roof of the box. To prevent this from happening, if you take like a bar of soap or just a bar of wax, like you can buy for canning wax, and rub that on the ceiling of your box early in the season and in between nestings, that coating of wax or soap will make it very difficult for the wasp to attach the nest to the roof. So it's easier to prevent them. If you've got them in there, I use a putty knife and I will crush that right up against the ceiling and scrape it out. Do be careful. You don't want to get stung. They're not a particularly aggressive wasp, these wasps. Usually they'll fly out when you open the box, but do be careful. You can just scrape it off, put some wax on the top, and then you'll be set to go. You might find there are mites that birds get, and I'm sorry I don't have it in here. I need to add a picture of mites. They're very, very tiny, kind of like light brown specks, and some birds will have enough of an infestation of these bird mites that can literally suck too much blood out of the babies, and they will not survive. If you see something where your nest is that full of mites, you may actually, usually if the birds are a little bit older, you just let them go, and as soon as it's cleaned out, you'll treat them. If it's so bad that you really think it's a problem, you can actually remove the babies very carefully, put them in some kind of a container with some Kleenex or something in the bottom of it, while you remove the entire nest. And then you'll fashion a new nest with just some dried grasses or stuff. If you are used to doing this, you may have actually kept a nice clean nest from a previous thing. Put the nest back in, put the babies back in, and then they'll be good to go. After they have fledged and you're cleaned out the box, you can use a spray that contains a pyrethrum insecticide. That is bird safe. You need to be very careful and read your label completely. Hot Shot makes one. The kitchen bug killer is the one. That has been harder to find these days, so you might look for something else that has pyrethrums. Pyrethrum is a compound that's extracted from chrysanthemums. It's effective and it is non-toxic to birds. So you would remove the nest, brush out the box, spray it with this, let it dry, close it up, and there you can go. Permethrin is the cheap chemical version that is often found nowadays. That is deadly for birds. So please do not use any sprays that contain permethrin. Get the pyrethrum for your birds, for your boxes. And again, this is after you've removed the box, if you've seen this. I don't use this routinely, but I've had occasion to have them. I have mites and used it. I've also used it on boxes that I had an ant problem. I have the grease, but I'll also spray that a little bit, and I'll spray it up under the pole too. House sparrows need their own special discussion because these are European house sparrows. They're an introduced species. This is introduced by man. So this is one of the things that caused the greatest decline in bluebird numbers. They are not protected because they are not native. So you can do anything you want to get rid of house sparrows. House sparrow nests are, they use grasses and things, but they're usually a very messy looking nest. When you get used to seeing them, they will have bits of plastic and ribbon and trash and grocery bags, anything. They're not a neat, nice built nest. The eggs are distinctive. Hopefully you won't go so far that you have the eggs. You need to remove those nests as soon as you see them building. You can try the method of closing the nest box whole and see if they'll move on. Whatever you do, please do not be increasing the population of sparrows, house sparrows around here. House sparrows are the ones that if you go to a giant supermarket or some other thing that has great big neon letters in front and you see a great big nest hanging in the bottom of the G. So you've got this and there's a big nest there. That's probably a house sparrow. So they have plenty of other options. Let them go there. They're an urban and a farm bird. I don't personally have a lot of problems with them, but some areas have a lot of them. So this is a very aggressive bird. They will destroy eggs. They will build a new nest on top of live babies, which kills them. They will kill the adults. And we can't keep them out. European starlings would do all these things, but that's why we're very careful to have an entrance hole that's too small for starlings to get into. So your big problem is these European house sparrows. So we really want to not have those in our nest boxes. This is what you find. If they get in there, they will kill the adult. They will break the eggs. This is a very disturbing thing to find in your nest box because the house sparrows have come in. So these are both sparrow spookers sort of things. The one on the left is a new one that I've just been introduced to lately. And you can put that in as soon as you put up the box or as soon as you see house sparrows. Use some push pins or tacks and put some fishing line in this pattern on the top of the box. Sparrows want to land on top of the box before they go in, and they don't like that fishing line. Bluebirds and other cavity nesters are more likely to land on the front of the box and hang off the front while they're looking into the hole. So you can install, if you've seen sparrows, put that on the top of the box right away, and they may not show up at all after that. They don't like that. And once you've got that, if you still have sparrows around, but you have a native bird that has gone in there, as soon as that bird has laid an egg, put on this sparrow spooker on the right. And that sparrow spooker, it's strips of mylar. So you can just go to the dollar store and buy a mylar balloon and cut the strips and build your own, any kind of, this is nice dowels and the green and everything else. You can use sticks from your yard and duct tape or whatever you need to get this together. And you just put this on the back of the box with the arms out and the strips of mylar cut so that they just brush the top of the box. The native bird that has laid an egg in there, they're pretty wedded to that box once they've done that. When you put this up, they're probably going to give that the evil eye for a little while, but they will come back in, and this will prevent the sparrows from coming. Once those birds have fledged, you want to take that down so that the sparrows aren't getting used to it, and then put it back up as needed. But these have been proven pretty effective, these two things, for people who have a problem with sparrows in their area. And again, in the chat, let us know if you've used these and if they were successful for you, or if you have other ideas. Sparrows are a real problem. You can trap sparrows and get rid of them. This assumes that you have a way to get rid of them. What are you going to do? You've got this bird. Are you going to take it to the local grocery store and let it go? They're not protected. Are you someone who's willing to just dispatch that bird? If you know someone who does falconry, they might take them as food for their falcons. But these Van Aert sparrow traps, they are mounted on the inside of the box. You set it, and then when the bird goes in, they hit that little wire triangle, and it causes it to close. So you've trapped a bird in the box. And then the red dot on there will show. So from a distance, you can see, oh, I see a red dot in there. I've got something in the box. So it's very important to keep an eye on the box and check that often, because you don't want to trap a native bird and then leave it in there all day. So they say check it once a day. I think every hour. You need to go out there and make sure you haven't trapped anything. And then you need to check and see what kind of bird it is. If you've trapped a native bird, you need to release it. If you trapped a sparrow, that one you can take. So once you've trapped it, as Kathy mentioned on Monday in her talk, she will take a mesh laundry bag, because it's easy to see. You could use an old pillowcase, put it over the entire box while you open it, because the bird's going to try and come out as you do that. So you can trap that bird in the mesh bag or in the pillow stripe to take it away. And the Bluebird Society has some of these at, like, I don't remember, $12 or $15 if you need one. Hopefully that's not a problem for you, but if you want to do it, you don't want sparrows. There have been studies that show that sparrows, which do not need, they're not obligatory cavity nesters. They don't need a cavity. They'll build in a tree. They'll build in a sign. They'll build almost anywhere. But if they were born and raised, hatched and raised in a nest box, they're far more likely to seek out a nest box when they are adults to nest in. So if you're letting that happen, you're just increasing the competition for bluebirds. And since they will kill other birds, and not just bluebirds, they'll kill anything that's in the box. You don't want to do that. So this is kind of what this whole week has been about. Build your box to the right specifications, mount it in a good place, mount it with a predator guard, monitor it during the season, clean it after each brood, and then take care of anything that it needs when you're doing it. It's a really fun thing to do. One thing I don't think any of us have mentioned is that if let's say that you typically check your box every Sunday, but on Sunday it's pouring rain and you think, I don't want to go out and check the box. Well, absolutely not. You should not be doing it. On bad weather days, it's hard enough for the parents to be getting any food for their babies. Leave them alone and do it the next day. So it's an outdoor hobby that you get a day off when the weather's bad. It's fun. It's very educational. And in addition to keeping your own records, I wanted to put a plug for Nest Watch. Nest Watch is a program by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, where you can register your boxes and then upload your data as a citizen scientist. And they really use this for research. Yesterday, it just so happened that the bird featured on this page changes every day. And yesterday, it happened to be the eastern bluebird. So there's an eastern bluebird. It has links for you to find nest plans, lots of different information on here, and it can be a real science project. If you have kids looking for something to do, Nest Watch is a way to do it. You can do it on your computer. You can do it with a mobile app. So something to look for is that Project Nest Watch. Need help? The Bluebird Society has help, and we had our 10th anniversary in 2014. It's a little bit longer than now. It was fun. The NABS is the North American Bluebird Society. We actually have had some people from Canada. Thank you and welcome for joining us. Cialis is the information about bluebirds. All of these sites have some information for you. So that is it. Questions from anyone?
We have lots of comments and some questions.
Good, good.
Let's see. Dana said that she had a great crested flycatcher use a nest box that was intended for an eastern screech owl.
Wow.
Let's see. Scott says that he had tree swallows try to take over a box, but he's been able to keep those off.
Oh, while we're talking about tree swallows, let me mention, and I should add this. If you have a lot of tree swallows, one thing you can do is pair your boxes. So the recommendation is generally that your boxes be 100 yards apart, because two bluebirds will not nest close to each other. However, they will nest very close to another species, and the other species likewise. So if you've got a lot of tree swallows, you could try putting another box up maybe 15, 20 feet away from the first box, and you'll get tree swallows in one and bluebirds in the other. And they often coexist very, very well. That's been my experience on my trail. The tree swallows dive bomb me even when I'm only looking in the bluebird box. So that's something to do if you've got a lot of competition for your boxes. Try pairing your boxes.
Oh, talking about dive bombing, Kelly said that the tree swallows occupy boxes near the other tree and the other tree swallows will all gang up on the monitor to defend
Yes,
the
they
nest.
will.
She said she has 6 dive bombing her at a time.
Yep.
Beth also mentioned that she had great crested flycatcher pair in one of their boxes this week.
Wow.
And Dana says that the fishing line technique has been very helpful to prevent sparrows from choosing the box. And in the meantime, she puts up, as you just mentioned, a separate box. She uses that for trapping purposes. And she's had great success so far with the sparrow spookers once a native egg has been laid.
Excellent.
Mary says that she uses dummy eggs to replace the eggs. She said it means sacrificing a box or two, but it seems to be reducing the populations and they're not attacking their other boxes in revenge.
Right. The other thing you can do is if you can oil the eggs, or it's called addling the eggs, so that the eggs that they have laid will not hatch. And that is an option because it occupies those birds. They will sit on those eggs far longer than they would normally sit on eggs. So at least you're not increasing the population. So if that's the only thing you can do, at least you've not increased the sparrow population by doing something like that.
And Kathleen says that she's also had success with the fishing line technique, that she stretches the fishing line on the box front with the hole and a pattern as described by Cialis. She said it was a good preventative. And
it's gone on the front and not the roof of the box.
That's what she mentions. Oops, I apologize for that. She mentions that she put it on the front of the box. There's a pattern that's described at Cialis.
Okay, I'll have to
doing so that's what she's done. She's also added a spooker, and so far so good. So she's got a mama that is nesting on eggs at present. Let's see, so some questions. Do you have a Bluebird box camera that you can recommend?
I do not, and I would love to have one. I'm sorry, I don't have one. There is something that you can look for in hardware stores sometimes. It's not a camera, but you can get, it's like a small endoscope. It's a flexible tube about this long with a camera and a light on the end, so that you can actually, instead of opening the box, look in through the hole. And some of those actually have recording, so that's not something that's up all the time like a webcam, but it is something that lets you peek in. And I'm sorry, maybe one of our board members will come in and we'll try and get you some information about that.
And what is the best place to get the Van Oort trap? I know you mentioned that MBS has it. Is there anywhere else?
I'm not the one who purchased them. I'm sure if you just Google that they'll come up somewhere.
Okay. Let's see here.
And in fact, if you have a local Wild Birds Unlimited or one of those that are actually sponsors of the Bluebird Society, the Backyard Naturalists, they may have them in stock.
And she says, as soon as I put up a box, the Bluebird moves in, so I worry about using a trap in the box.
Well, if you've got bluebirds in there already, then you don't want to trap it. You want to put up a sparrow spooker.
There you go. And Kathleen, who was doing the fishing line on the front of the box, she says that it's in addition to the top of the box.
Okay, so on front and I had only seen that it was put on the top, but that's good to know. We'll have to look for an illustration of that. Maybe you could send us a picture.
Let's see, blink camera for box camera, according to Mary. And for Vanert traps, Dana has provided a link, and I'll send that out to everyone in an email. And Valerie also provided some additional information. And
thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. I love having people who have done this, and you know, there are all kinds of solutions to problems, and it's really good to have input from other people.
excellent, excellent. Well, I think we're ready to do our raffle today then.
Let me give a shout out before we stop. I've recognized some of the names on this from our Friends of Seneca Creek State Park Facebook page, people who like those posts. I'm the one who does those posts. So I just wanted to give a shout out to you people and say thank you for being here. Hope you're a member of both the Friends and the Maryland Bluebird Society. So hello to you.
We got another question actually during that time. Allison says, our bluebirds have 4 eggs in their nest, but regularly check out, fly over the roof and go inside an empty box across the yard. Should I leave that empty box there?
You can certainly leave it there. They may be just checking to make sure, or that no other bluebirds use that box. When you've got 2 boxes in your yard, if they're not 100 yards apart, it's best to place them so that the birds can't see each other from the box. So like the house is in between. But that's like a paired box. They're probably interested in that box, interested in making sure that no other bluebirds use it. But if another, like some chickadees or something, move in, they'll probably start ignoring it. So you don't necessarily have to take it down, but if you want to get bluebirds in your yard and you don't have the spacing to put them 100 yards apart, sometimes if you put them so that they're just not within line of sight, that is sometimes successful in getting bluebirds in both boxes. And I was going to mention something else, and I think on Monday someone had asked whether or not there was a preference for new boxes or old boxes, and I don't know the specific answer to that question, but I can say that in areas with no boxes, if you put up brand new boxes, you will get occupants almost immediately. So there's so much competition for nest sites, for cavities, that I don't know if maybe if you put up an old box and a new box, they would pick one over the other. But if you just put up new boxes, they are generally readily used, particularly in areas where there have not been adequate natural cavities for them to nest in.
Excellent, excellent. Excuse me. Valerie provided a link for the blink cameras in the chat box. So
thank you.
Hopefully everyone can see that. And Beth asked about missing previous programs, and we are indeed recording these. We do hope to send out a link to everyone about how you can view each of these programs again. That hopefully will come out sometime next week or so. So keep an eye out in your email. We'll be sure to notify you when that's available.